What if one spontaneous moment put an end to one of the greatest comedies on television overnight? The Honeymooners revolutionized the sitcom with its coarse, uncensored humor based on working-class existence, but beneath all the chuckles there was one moment so disturbing that it was effectively buried for decades. One line, read in a different way than ever before, brought the audience to a standstill and caused shockwaves to reverberate through the network. This is the tale they attempted to suppress, an unusual intersection of Cold War politics, sponsor anxiety, and a live show that edged across a line no one could see. Was it an error, or was it the evening Jackie Gleason showed more of himself than even Ralph Kramden could manage? If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel Spark Science, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. Jackie Gleason's origin didn't start under the glare of a TV studio or amid the luxury of a Hollywood estate. It started in a small Brooklyn apartment, the kind of place where a squeak of the floorboards reminded you of how heavy survival was. Gleason was born in 1916 and grew up in a tough Irish-American neighborhood where toughness was woven into the very fabric of everyday life. By the time Jackie was 9, his father had deserted them, leaving his mother to carry him on a series of low-paying, long-hours jobs. That kind of loss leaves a scar. In Gleason, it cut deep into a reservoir of frustration, ambition, and iron grit which would one day flow straight into Ralph Kramden. He didn't have the option of a straightforward or simple route into show business. A lot of his childhood was spent struggling, waiting around pool halls, working odd jobs, doing whatever would generate a little money. The neighborhood itself was an ongoing theater, loud shouting pouring from tenement windows, neighbors living paycheck to paycheck, and families with aspirations always greater than their resources. These voices, these gesturings, and these rhythms of everyday struggle were the material that Gleason would later redirect on live television. When Gleason burst forth as Ralph Kramden, he wasn't acting, he was performing Brooklyn on television. His first genuine break came not in a sitcom but on the variety stage. Gleason's natural rhythm, slapstick physicality, and charm made him near certainly to be drawn to by audiences. In the early 1950s, he had his own television series on the ailing Dumont network, Cavalcade of Stars. There, in 1951, Ralph Kramden was created. The original Kramden was not the refined character of today. He was tougher, loud, irascible, crude, and always plotting. For viewers used to cardigan-clad, calm TV dads, seeing a man yell across a rundown apartment at his sharp-witted wife was sheer electric stuff. While most shows on television depicted suburban life as perfect and safe, the Honeymooners' routines on Cavalcade had a very different voice. Ralph was not some suburban patriarch with a well-manicured lawn and cheerful children. He was a bus driver in New York City who never seemed to catch a break. Rather than prospering, he fantasized endlessly about get-rich-quick schemes, only to see them fall into farcical failure. Viewers identified at once. They identified with Ralph's humble victories and setbacks. At the heart of the show's realism was Ralph's and Alice Kramden's relationship. Alice was not the beaming, obedient housewife that appeared on almost every other sitcom. She resisted. She pushed back against Ralph's bluster, argued with him line for line, and never stayed silent when calling out his harebrained schemes. Their dynamic wasn't some fantasy from TV, it was the kind of argument and make-up cadence that resonated through millions of American kitchens. Casting Alice was not a piece of cake. Audrey Meadows nearly didn't get the role at all. CBS executives thought she was too glamorous to portray a working-class wife. Wanting to disprove them, Meadows divorced herself of all Hollywood glitz. She appeared on set in everyday clothes, her hair back, no makeup, looking just like Alice Kramden. Gleason had one glance and was sure she was ideal. But the first Alice wasn't Meadows. Originally, the part was Pert Kelton's, and she gave the character a crisper, more caustic bite. Her stay was cut short, professionally due to health problems. The real reason was sinister. During the peak of the Red Scare, her husband's supposed communist affiliations made her a liability that the network was not ready to risk. In quietude, in secret, she was let go. Gleason's popularity wasn't merely a laughing matter, political currents were powering the show in directions no one could predict. When the Honeymooners plays began taking off, it was in large part due to the sizzling chemistry between Ralph and Alice. Pert Kelton, the original Alice, had a quick wit and acid tongue that equaled Ralph's energy. Her abrupt disappearance left audiences scratching their heads. The official explanation was health reasons, but behind the scenes people knew the real perpetrator: blacklist politics. During the fevered climate of the 1950s, when the persecution of suspected communist sympathizers ruled the entertainment world, mere association with a suspect was sufficient to ruin a career. Kelton herself was never arrested, and no proof against her was ever presented. But the culture of fear was so strong that CBS decided to remove her quietly instead of provoking outrage from sponsors and advertisers. Finding a substitute for Alice was not an easy process. She was the only one who could keep Ralph under control. Cast an actress too soft, and the show's dynamic would fail. Cast an actress too harsh, and it would lose all its humor. Step into Audrey Meadows, who redefined Alice as a quieter, more earthy presence. Where Ralph answered Kelton's fire with fire, Meadows used restraint, delivering caustic lines with quiet steadiness that made Ralph's bluster look even greater. For some early fans, Kelton's fiery interpretation was irreplaceable. But Meadows's warmth expanded Alice's appeal, making her a character audiences not only laughed with but cared about. When Ralph, after an episode of failure and shouting, looked at Alice and muttered, "Baby, you're the greatest," the moment carried genuine emotional weight. The blacklist had already changed the direction of the show, but the most radical revolution was yet to come, when the Honeymooners abandoned sketches and revolutionized television forever. By 1955, American television was clogged with neat suburban families who resolved life's dilemmas in 30 minutes. Fathers doled out wise advice, mothers smiled in the kitchen, and children learned salubrious lessons. Into this safe, sanitized world walked the Honeymooners, and it turned everything upside down. Gone were clean living rooms. Instead, the cramped Brooklyn apartment, peeling wallpaper, cluttered table, every corner testifying to working-class strife. No children with punchlines, no tidy endings. Only Ralph and Alice, two grown-ups struggling with dreams, disappointments, and each other. Ralph wasn't a pillar of intelligence. He was a bus driver with an overactive imagination, a quick temper, and a talent for wrecking his own schemes. Alice wasn't passive either, she was smart, strong-willed, and unwilling to accommodate Ralph's fantasies without a struggle. These were messy, fallible characters, and audiences adored them all the more for it. Every episode was a little play, an independent story with its complete emotional journey. Gleason, who abhorred rehearsals, demanded spontaneity, treating every taping as a live stage show. The effect was living room comedy. People laughed not because of a laugh track but because they were enjoying themselves. The show's honesty was groundbreaking. Ralph's catchphrases, "To the moon, Alice," and "Baby, you're the greatest," instantly entered American pop culture. But beyond the jokes, the Honeymooners proved that comedy could capture the struggles of ordinary life and still be funny. It also made way for future series such as All in the Family, Roseanne, and even The Simpsons. Ralph Cramden provided the model for characters that were both profoundly flawed and profoundly human. Honesty, however, came at a price. And one live moment would soon challenge just how far viewers would go. Jackie Gleason lived for surprises. He hated rehearsals, believing that improvisation gave shows integrity. That energy would typically jolt the show. But one evening, it got out of hand. The show started off as any other, Ralph stuck in some harebrained plot, Alice eye-rolling, the laughter rolling uneasily. But in one dramatic scene, Gleason changed his tone. His voice lowered, his tone grew menacing, and suddenly the comic rant became unpardonably sincere. The laughter ceased abruptly. The crowd sat in heavy silence as Gleason's words cut more biting than ever before. Audrey Meadows, steady as Alice, stood firm, reacting with calm restraint to bring the scene back from the edge. Audiences at home took notice. Letters flooded in, some applauding the unvarnished realism, others condemning it as pushing a toxic envelope. Sponsors fretted. CBS executives reminded Gleason to keep it light. But that improvised moment also demonstrated that television comedy could be more than merely entertaining, it could hurt, unsettle, and expose uncomfortable truths. By 1956, The Honeymooners was a phenomenon. The catchphrases were on everybody's lips, the characters were like family. And then, in a shock to all, Jackie Gleason cut it short after only 39 episodes, the classic 39. Why kill a hit? Gleason was afraid of repetition. He felt the idea had natural boundaries and did not want the show to stagnate. Far better to end it at the top than to keep it slogging into mediocrity. It was an artist's move almost never heard in television, where networks historically wrung every last drop of life from a hit. But there were others. Live performance took its toll on the cast. Gleason's drinking and quick tempers kept production volatile. His co-stars, particularly Audrey Meadows and Art Carney, had to endure. Its fans were heartbroken. CBS pleaded with Gleason to change his mind. He would not. The classic 39 became the entire run of The Honeymooners as a solo show. Ironically, that limited lifespan ensured its greatness. While other sitcoms overstayed their welcome and wore out, The Honeymooners remained a flawless time capsule, forever rewatchable. Although the show was cancelled, Ralph Cramden never really went away. In the 1960s, Gleason brought the characters back on the Jackie Gleason Show in Miami. Initially, they were used in short vignettes. Later, in the late 1960s and 1970s, they came back in complete hour-long episodes called The Color Honeymooners. The chemistry among Gleason, Meadows, and Carney didn't waver, even as the years went by. The new shows captured shifting times, sometimes addressing issues of the day but maintaining the same comforting dynamic, Ralph's harebrained schemes, Alice's down-to-earth sense, and Norton's comedic zaniness. Others liked the classic 39's old-fashioned purity, but others welcomed the revival as a return to the fold. Either way, The Honeymooners had demonstrated